Right. I got this little message up here again.
Yep, just send it down there.
17104.com.
And again, we do thank you for joining us for the debut of the Griot Collective. Yes, you heard right, the Griot Collective right here. Nathaniel Gadsden presents on the voice17104.com. As you see, I'm not Reverend Gadsden, but I'm sure he'll be joining us here momentarily for the debut program called the Griot Collective. Truly, we anticipate a wonderful time in broadcasting. Just waiting for Dr. Gadsden to tune back in. Just going to share with you the flyer for this new endeavor called the Griot Collective. Again, it's Nathaniel Gadsden presents the Griot Collective. Again, Thursdays, 8 p.m. until 9 p.m. But don't forget also on Fridays, they have Nathaniel Gadsden's Writers Workshop. And again, Nathaniel Gadsden's Writers Workshop is from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Friday. But this is the debut of the Griot Collective. And without further delay, here's our host, Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden. God bless you. Welcome back, sir.
God bless you, brother. Yeah, I don't know, something's going on with this computer here, but we're going to work this thing out. Anyhow, how's everybody? God bless you, and I hope that wherever you are, you're having yourself a blessed day, and you are enjoying 2023 Black History Month. Can you imagine? This is 2023. We've had quite a history, here in these United States and throughout the world. Literally, I was born in 1950, and so for me to say 2023 is quite interesting. I'm 72 now, I'll be turning 73. And when I think about history, and African American history in particular, wow, all that has happened since 1950 to now, and way before 1950. But just in my lifetime, we've had some significant things happen, and it's just been amazing. So we're going to explore some of that. I do have a new book out that I'm, pretty proud of. I'm holding it up here. I don't know if you can see that. And it's a, little labor of love. It's essentially many of the articles that I wrote for the Black Wall Street here in Harrisburg. And, has a lot of the articles, has some of my poetry, stories of African-American struggles, achievements that feed the soul, by me, Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden. And it has a lot of different articles, stories, and also poems and stuff in here. And I hope that you're going to join us this coming Sunday. We'll have it down at the State Museum this Sunday from 1 to 4 at the State Museum, the Writers Workshop, and also Life Esteem. We will be hosting our annual, the Black History program, and it's called Keeping the Culture Alive. It's a celebration honoring those who preserve our history. And we have some outstanding people that will be honored, and we hope that you'll come out. We have 5 individuals and 5 families, and they will be lifted up for the achievements that they've made to our community, but they've never forgotten our history nor our culture. And that's why we're lifting them up and, reminding ourselves that there are many people amongst us who celebrate us by the work that they do. And so really looking forward to that day. We have some folks who will be presenting and performing for us. At the same time, again, we're going to be honoring, that's the main reason why we're gathering, honoring some people. We do have a wonderful person by the name of Betty Curtis, who will be giving a small lecture from like 1:15 to say 1:45. She's 91 years old. She's a librarian, having gotten her master's degree from Drexel University in library science. She served in the military for a number of years, and she served over in Korea. And, she has an interesting story to tell about that time and Black history. It fits right in fact. And then also we have, Betty Curtis is going to, speak, and hopefully get a chance maybe just, ask her some questions and all that. But she's been a big friend of the Writers Workshop. She's written many things and has presented many times over the years. So just happy to have her. We're also going to have, the Reverend Dr. Dred Perky Scott, who will be singing, doing a presentation for us. We had the Winneman African Dance Company. We always feature them. They are fantastic, with Lark Daniels at the helm and Lee Wysocki, one of the lead drummers. And they bring the house down every single time. We have a little dance group that's from Harrisburg here. And I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, the names, because they're really good. And they have young people who I think the oldest are probably in high school, or maybe ninth grade, I think it is. But anyhow, yeah, they're going to be performing for us and dance. We have some outstanding poets, Wendy Noche Onye, Ro Brady, Dr. Dan Snowden, and some others will be joining us. And it's just going to be a fun time. And then in between, the families that we honor, the individuals that we honor, will give a 5-minute presentation and just talk about some of the things they're doing. And of course, holding the 5 minutes is going to be a challenge, but we're going to make it happen because, we have a long program and we have a lot of things. Commissioner George Hartwick contacted us and said he would be there and be a part of the program. I'm so glad to have Commissioner Hartwick as part of it. And also we're going to have some wonderful MCs, if you will. My friend and yours, Nicole Wilkerson, also Tiffany Hall, and Donna. Donna, I'm gonna mess up your name, but it's going to hit me in a minute here. But anyhow, those three ladies will be honoring us with their presence and lifting up, the honorees and keeping the program moving forward. So it's just going to be a great time. We hope that you'll come out and bring your whole family. That auditorium can hold about 400 people, and we would love to see that auditorium packed to the gills so that we can celebrate Black history, living Black history, the proper way, okay? Listen, there's a lot of stuff going on tonight. I'm going to be referring you. This is called the Griot Collective. This is a book I rely on quite a book called Glory Days, 365 Inspired Moments in African American History by Janice Adams. And Janice Adams is an African-American sister who she says here is the founder of the Harambe Backpacks, the first book club devoted to African-American culture, and the publisher of multicultural media for young people. She has a commentator for American Public Radio's business news program, The Marketplace. She created the series Milestones in African American Business History. Her work has been featured by national broadcasts and print media, including NPR's All Things Considered, NBC News, the Chicago Tribune, Los Angeles Times, New York Times, USA Today, Essence Magazine, Good Housekeeping, and Ms. Magazine. Among her honors are an Emmy awarded for her television writing and a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. So this is a sister who's extremely, accomplished, and she's doing great work. And again, we're going to be referring to her book called Glory Days. And we have many other resources as well that we're going to lift up. And I already mentioned my, latest little project out. I don't know if I call it a full book, but it's wonderful. And I think that hopefully people will grab this up and want to read the stories and understand some of the people that live, everyday people, not just, not just the Rosa Parks and Martin Luther Kings of the world, even though we must live them up, but also just everyday people that live right here in our community, and people who around the world should know because they're contributors to our history and to our culture. All right. There's a lot of good programs coming up, by the way. I think it's Saturday, I think it's the 25th, down at Stilton High Spire School in Stilton. They will have a African-American book read-in. It's an annual event sponsored by the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the oldest African-American sorority in the country. And the AKAs do a fantastic job. I want to thank Karen Love, who contacted me and told me that she had recommended me to be a part of that. I plan on being there and taking my books with me. And, it's going to be a good time. I think it's from 10 to, I think it's 12:30, from 10 to 12:30. They have a wonderful read-in. So bring your kids down, find out more about it. I wish I had a contact number for you, but you can always call, probably the Stilton Schools, or go on Facebook and look up the AKAs or Karen Love and find out more about the event itself and see whether or not you can get involved. And they always have a lot of good books by African-American authors that you don't find just right here readily in your community. And so that's a great, time to go out. And I think you can purchase some of the books. I know you can purchase them online, but I don't know if you'll be able to purchase them that day. Maybe, maybe not. But I do know that they will have people reading from those books and, encouraging young people to read. and to appreciate our history and our culture, and make sure that they understand our history and our culture, and then become contributors to our history and our culture. That's what it's really all about. So again, this program will be coming on every single Thursday evening. It's called the Griot Collective. It is a part of the Writers' Workshop, and we have an arm of persons who are performance poets and storytellers, and they will be comprising, this entity called the Griot Collective. Some of them will be featured here on the Thursday night, and certainly when we have events out in community at these universities and colleges, we would love to be featured there and go and present. And there you see our official flyer, Griot Collective, and I want to thank Brother Chris for pulling that up, and I truly appreciate that. He did as a labor of love. Last week we were talking about the concept, and boom, he made that happen. So again, thank you, my brother. We do have a video we're going to show tonight. I asked Brother Chris to find a couple of things. It's hard to find stuff that's not, copywritten and all that good stuff. And we have to be careful that we don't steal anybody else's property. But we will be relying on some video from time to time on this particular show so that we can learn together. And also we'll have some speakers come on, people who can just, speak to, our history, our culture, and things that, we should be concerned about, and make it interesting, because that's the other thing. We don't want a boring lecture. We do want an engaging speaker who can keep us both informed as well as, attentive to the information that's being offered. So I promise you, I will try to find some dynamic speakers, people who are making it happen, living history right in our midst. That's what we're looking for. Hey, listen, I know for some of us know the outstanding poet and playwright, Terry Durden. And I want to send my, love out to Terry. She's a great artist, has done a lot of good things, and her plays have been really pretty powerful. But Terry put it all over Facebook that she went through brain surgery just recently. And believe me, it was very graphic. The amount of surgery, where they have to cut the head open and all that and address the problem, which was a tumor. And so we're praying for her speedy recovery, and that everything will go well. And, she'll be with her complete faculties, and all of her creative juices will still be intact and all that. But she's in recovery now, and it's been a few days. But again, she put it up on Facebook. And so, I don't mind mentioning it. So just keep her in prayer. Her name is Terry Durden. Terry is down out of York, Pennsylvania. And she's quite a presence in our community. She is part of that thing called the living history. Okay, absolutely, she's part of that, and she's doing a tremendous contribution to our people and to this society in general. Another person I want to lift up is Carla Christopher. She's been going through her own battles with a number of different things as well. Carla is down in York, Pennsylvania. In fact, Terry's not in York. I think she's more in Lancaster. I could be wrong. I think she's in Lancaster. But anyhow, Carla definitely is in York, Carla Christopher. And Carla was one of the persons who really revived the Writers' Workshop by bringing in a lot of poets from this general area. When we had our program down there at the Midtown Scholar Bookstore, and we were working with a lot of young people and just, poets in general. And boy, did she supply us with some outstanding speakers and writers who came in and just brought the house down. But she's now become she's still a writer, but she's also a pastor, and she's pastoring a church. She is really, really into her calling, and a magnificent person she is. And so anyhow, I want to lift up Carla Christopher and her health struggles, and hopefully she will, again, prevail as well and continue to be victorious in all that she does. And, keep her in prayer as well. Carla Christopher and Terry Durden, two dynamic women who are making history as we speak. So God bless them. And they are keepers of the culture for real. So God bless them for what they do. Anyhow, so I'm going to ask Brother Chris if he doesn't mind pulling up the video tonight. And this is a small timeline of the Civil Rights Movement in 1954 to 1968. All right.
1954. Thurgood Marshall successfully argues Brown versus the Board of Education. 1955. Rosa Parks ignites the movement. 1957. The Little Rock Nine in Arkansas. 1960, sit-ins integrate the South. 1963, the historic March on Washington. 1965, the assassination of Malcolm X. 1968, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and President Lyndon Johnson signs the historic Civil Rights Bill.
Boy, I tell you, and that brings back so many memories. As I said, I was born in 1950. So think about it in 54, 55, all those dates that were lifted up. I was just maturing as a young person and being very much aware, even though, I wasn't necessarily part of the movement or anything like that. I was too young, but I was very much aware of what was going on. You saw it on TV all the time. You heard, our elders sit around and talk about it, sometimes in hushed tones. It was very interesting. They were talking about things that were unfolding right in front of us. And there was a lot of upheaval because there was a lot of racism and apartheid types of, laws that were in place, both de facto and de jure. In other words, ones that just existed because they did exist, and also those that existed by law. Such as Black people and white people could not intermingle and marry. There was a famous case was made into a movie where a couple in Virginia wanted to marry. He was white, she was Black, and they had to go to different parts of the country and kept getting denied and all kinds of stuff. There was also an African brother who was marrying an Indian woman from India. And they had the same kind of struggles. Recently, they had that, on TV talking about their struggles and how they went from, again, Virginia or that area of Virginia, and then down to Florida and found out that they were still being denied, the ability to marry. And they were called an interracial couple because he was from Nigeria and she was from India. I believe it was India. But anyhow, those things were happening constantly. Some of them we know about because someone wrote about them, told the history, tells the story, but a lot of times those things just were things that just happen. No one tells the story, no one, remembers it. And so it just, it just kind of was. But there are a lot of stories out there of heroism and also of tragedy. There are a lot of people stood up to those laws and unjust, traditions of segregation and discrimination. And at the same time, there were a lot who, just simply couldn't bear it. And they just, just didn't do whatever it is they sought out to do because they just knew it was too risky. So that's part of history. There's so much that went on. They talked about the assassination of Malcolm X. I remember that taking place. And of course, there's been a book written about his life and all those things, and then also movies. And there's a lot of discussion around Malcolm X and what he stood for. He was first born Malcolm Little, and then became, by his own choosing, Malcolm X, and became a part of the Nation of Islam, having spent time in prison, and was introduced to a person who introduced him to the nation. And then he became one of the major faces and voices of the Nation of Islam. And he was challenging the ways of Dr. Martin Luther King, because he didn't believe in the nonviolence way. He said, if they put their hands on me, then we had the right to put our hands back on them, and stuff like that. And he had fiery rhetoric that he used to, talk about the issues of race and all that. And then he had sort of an epiphany, awakening, where he went to Mecca and he saw people of, all colors and backgrounds, who were Muslims, who were practicing Muslims like he was. And it turned his life around. He was like, wow. So all of a sudden he saw brothers and sisters who didn't look like him, did not look like him, but they were his brothers and sisters in the faith. And so that kind of shook him up, and he decided to break away from, in fact, he was being silenced for a while because of his speaking out on an assassination of, a couple of people who he said, well, the chickens have come home to roost. And that statement was, widely published all around the world, and the nation set him down because they thought he was speaking out of turn and told not to say those things. He didn't want people to get scared up. But anyhow, so he breaks away, and next thing you know, he's assassinated. And there's always been speculation that the people who ultimately assassinated him were actually people from the nation. But, and there's documentaries out there proving it, disproving it, whatever. But yeah, so, and then of course there's the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, April the 4th, 1968, balcony of the Rain Motel, and he stands there and he's, in a good mood, so to speak, getting ready to go and do his work as only he could do, along with his lieutenants, such as Jesse Jackson and Andrew Young and many others. And then a shot rings out and he's hit full force in the head and he dies. Unbelievable time. I remember both of those assassinations very vividly because I was, 14 or 15 at one and 17, 18, actually 18, you may turn 18 on the other. That's Dr. Martin Luther King. And so very much aware of what was going on. And, those times were tumultuous. There was the hippie movement taking place and coming into, there was the anti-war movement that was beginning to blow up. And that was the Vietnam War, where a lot of people in the United States were just dead set against that war. And no one wanted to go serve in that war. I sure didn't. Lucky that my number was, I think, 144 in Chester County. And they said, oh, we'll never, as far as the draft is concerned, I said, we'll never get past, to 100, they thought. And then they did get past it, they went up to whatever, but it didn't reach 144. So I was spared that, that going into the military and all that kind of stuff by force, because back then we had what was called the draft, and I could have gotten drafted easily. So thank God I didn't. But anyhow, there's so much to be said, like I said, in that period from 1954 to 1968. They said they were going to desegregate schools by any means, by all deliberate speed. That's right. With all deliberate speed, they're supposed to operate and move. And you say, well, how do you measure all deliberate speed? And then what does that really mean? And so a lot of people did pretty much nothing. They didn't see the reason for it. And so, yeah, we have to know what the laws are. We also have to know what the kickbacks can be and what the, the shakeup could be. Because right now, in one of the schools, I think it was Susquehanna Township, they had a march. Well, anyhow, one of the schools had a big march because they were banning everything. Anything that had a black title to it, they were banning it. And I say they, that means that the people who are responsible and who continue to perpetuate the lie of, the election was rigged and all that kind of stuff. Those are the people who, they change the course of America if they can. And if they don't want us to read our own history, that's one thing, But then we had a lot of people who were historian buffs and who also had, real feel for, history. They didn't know. But all of a sudden, they don't want to talk about it. They're concerned that their kids, may be affected by the truth of our history. Can you imagine that? They don't want to talk about it. They don't even want to entertain the idea. And then when they do bring up something to justify their current status, they'll bring up something so outlandish. Like they'll say, well, they're talking about, shaming, young people and making them feel guilty for what happened, all that kind of stuff. No one's asking them to be ashamed or feel guilty. We're asking you to understand what happened and to know that this is a historical document and that this isn't something we made up. And if we're not careful, if we don't do something about the future, then we're doomed to repeat the past. And that's something we don't want to do. It's something we won't do. But at the same time, the danger's there, There are those people who look at us and, because they are convinced that, we're the problem, even though we were the ones who were the enslaved property of them. Isn't that something? Well, let's not talk about that, I'm going to ask Brother Chris if he doesn't mind pulling up the second video, which is a lot longer for him to understand. And I will use that as a springboard, talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. And here we go.
Ready for this?
It went viral when we first created it, actually. In that moment, I think we knew that we were onto something that was resonating in a very deep way.
The hashtag is this phenomenon now. Yeah. You want to go there? People were tweeting us like, hey, didn't y'all create Black Lives Matter? And then all of a sudden, it's like the Black Lives Matter movement, and then none of us are actually there to tell the story of the Black Lives Matter.
The narrative has really evolved to this weird thing of, oh, you know, again, our Black women are fighting for our Black men. And it's like, wait a minute, what? No, we're fighting for all of us.
All right, let me just set the record straight.
My name is Opal Tameti.
My name is Patrice Colors.
I'm Alicia Garza.
We are the founders of #BlackLivesMatter.
I am born and raised in the Bay Area in California. There's not many of us left. We're almost like unicorns. I come from a long line of strong Black women. My grandmother was a domestic worker. My mom did domestic work. A lot of my background in organizing comes from organizing with women.
I come to this work because I'm the daughter of Nigerian immigrants who are actually undocumented for most of my childhood, possibly facing deportation. That to me really shaped my my entire kind of formative years.
I grew up in Los Angeles and witnessed a significant amount of state violence. I remember the police officer who would patrol our block and would harass my siblings. And I remember feeling frightened most of the time. So my coming into this work has to do with the fight for Black lives.
We have breaking news tonight in the case of the unarmed Black teenager shot dead by a crime
When
watch.
Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman, this was a case where a child had literally been stalked and killed just steps away from home. The conversation that was happening in the media was, what did Trayvon do to cause his own death?
The reason Trayvon Martin died was because he looked a certain way. He was wearing a hoodie, and that way is how gangstas look.
Thinking about my 14-year-old brother and literally not being able to sleep because I was like, this cannot be.
When it was announced that the jury had acquitted George Zimmerman of all charges, it actually felt like I got punched in the gut. So I went on social media to try to find words for what was happening. And what I wanted in that moment was some love for us. And so I wrote a love letter to Black people on Facebook. And I said, Black people, I love you, I love us, we matter, our lives matter, Black Lives Matter. And my sister here threw a hashtag in front of it. She was like, that's the business right there. And then my sister Opal said, I have all these skills and I can help build this out. We need people to have a space to tell their stories. We need folks to have a space to collaborate together, to strategize together, so that we can build the power that we need in order to get free.
When we developed Black Lives Matter, it was never just about the killings of young Black boys. It was about an intervention and really declaring that all Black lives matter. Black immigrants, Black folks with disabilities, Black trans folks, bringing our team that are at the margins closer and closer for the purpose of building our power.
Black Lives Matter is about so much more than policing. And that's something that gets lost a lot. And I think we have to bring together more folks than are just working in the criminal justice system.
Yes.
And we need to understand how police, right, are a part of the ability of these systems to thrive and function.
I believe that we're in an incredible time with social media. It's been integral to our movements. However, I don't think it's everything. Like, we can't sit and watch on Twitter or see the live streams and Facebook feeds and all that. We actually have to show up physically. We're kind of following in the same tradition as our elders and utilizing whatever means we have in order to get the message out.
Roll, Jordan, roll. Roll, Jordan, roll. I want to go to heaven when I die.
Lots of folks want to compare us to the civil rights movement. Our movement is not ahistorical. We come from a long legacy of resistance and resilience as Black people. But the old civil rights really upheld a narrative around respectability, around what we're supposed to look like and be like. Folks in Ferguson said, no, we're not your respectable Negro. We are going to sag our pants. We are going to be ratchet.
That's right.
And we're okay with that. We believe that we have to show up in our full selves without closeting parts of ourselves, marginalizing parts of ourselves, and build together.
You're going to hear it once. All lives matter. All lives matter.
Black lives matter. White lives matter. All lives matter.
All lives matter!
The reason that we don't use all lives matter is because that's obvious, but it's also a utopia that we don't live in. Part of the discomfort around talking about Black Lives Matter is that it breaks open a fundamental contradiction in this country, which is racism and white supremacy. In this next period where we have kind of the sunsetting of one presidency and the ascendancy of another one, we really need to be talking about this question of citizenship, which I think is huge. And I feel like what Black folks are fighting for in this moment, right, is what we've been fighting for the whole time, which isn't citizenship like papers, but it's citizenship like dignity, like humanity, right?
Access.
And access, exactly. And making sure that people have the ability to shape and participate in a new type of democracy. Nobody wants to talk about race in a post-racial society. But this is a real deep-seated disease that this country suffers from that infects all of our society. And so when we nail this piece around Black lives, we're actually trying to unlock the humanity of this country.
Fantastic, yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful piece. Thank you, Brother Chris, for finding that and lifting that up for us. The Black Lives Matter movement was just, powerful from the beginning, but especially after, first Trayvon, and then all those others in between, Brown, Mike Brown, and so many others. Wow, it's just an incredible string of deaths that were taking place by police officers who just would not get it, just didn't, could care less, Think about the young boy that was playing with a toy gun in a park by himself, bothering nobody. He just out there, running around, and a neighbor sees him, calls the police, thinking, well, I don't know, The police officer pulls up and they said within 3 seconds as he gets out of his car, he shoots and kills the young man, and then finds out that it was a toy gun and he wasn't bothering anybody. There was no one else around. He was just out there doing little cops and robbers, imagination in his head, wish he hadn't because of the society we live in. But can you imagine getting out of your car and within 3 seconds, you shoot and kill somebody and not even have an opportunity to say, son, is that a real gun? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Just ask some basic questions, Shoots him dead. Unbelievable. That's the mentality. Young man in his car with his fiance or wife and also a child in the back. And he tells the officer, I do have a gun in the glove compartment. I'm not, we don't use it. I have a permit for it. And he's just trying to say to him, listen, here it is. He opens up the glove compartment, the officer in a panic shoots him, shoots him dead, shoots him point blank, And we had our own person right here in Harrisburg, an Officer Pickles. It wasn't Officer Pickles. Officer Pickles shot and killed the young man, I'm trying to think of his name, down on Front Street there. And the suspicion was that he had a stolen car or whatever, but never gave the guy a chance to defend himself, to talk about it, just rode up on him, boom, shot him. I remember participating in that march that we had going down 3rd Street in front of the state capitol, and Viola Fields, Mrs. Viola Fields, who was head of the NAACP here locally. And then you had her husband Barton Fields, and so many people who, pulled that together. And then as we marched for Trayvon Martin, going down years later, going down Market Street, and I was so impressed with, Jabir Yother, a white brother who, relates to African-American culture in a very unique way, and an outstanding poet and spoken word artist. And he helped to organize that bad boy, and it just turned out to be a huge march. And I was really pleased and surprised to see Bishop Nathan Baxter, Bishop Nathan Baxter, leading the march in all of his regalia with the hat, the long flowing cape and everything, and the staff. And he came to lead that march and make sure that, God was in the mix, so to speak. Other ministers like myself and others were marching as well, but he put on all that regalia and marched for a long distance. God bless him. I always loved the spirit of and the vision of Nathan Baxter, the Bishop Nathan Baxter, who just is an incredible man. But anyhow, so those things have taken place, So yeah, people rose up, people still rising up, and then people letting their voices be heard, but especially the Black Lives Matter voice. When you saw in DC, they had an aerial view of it, and they could see a street that they took and made the words Black Lives Matter in the street down in DC there. And so, you couldn't help but walk, down the street and walk across those words. And especially when they did that aerial view, and you could see down on it, and Black Lives Matter. How about this? In the midst of his illness, John Lewis, the great Congressman John Lewis, who was one of the first of the youth to really, break into the inner circles, if you will, of the civil rights movement. And he got a chance to speak at the March on Washington, where you had some 285,000 to 300,000 people, gathered back in 1963. And here he was, able to, lend his voice, but not without some pressure, not without some, changing, because they want to scrutinize his speech, to make sure that he, was keeping within the boundaries and all that kind of whatever that might be. But also he was one of the first persons across the Edmund Pettit's Bridge and that Bloody Sunday. And they decided to turn the, people back. And the marchers, before they could even move back, they stood still first. And then the horses and the police officers came and just started pushing them down and beating them, tear gassing them, and everything. And these are peaceful people. They're not doing anything. They're marching in the way that Dr. King would have them march, without weapons or anything. All they had was their love of this country, their determination to change these unjust laws, and their will, and to show through. But they did not get run over and beaten. Sure they did. Yeah, it's amazing stuff, and I can go on and on with different little scenarios of different things that happened. We had, Kent State, but you also had Jackson State in terms of state troopers coming in and just shooting people down and using live ammo. And at Jackson State, which is all Black, college, predominantly Black college, where Deion Sanders just left, in fact, very historic because that one building, was shot up by persons who came in representing government and all that. And a lot of people got hurt. I don't know how many died, but I know a lot of people got hurt. And it didn't make national news like Kent State did. Kent State was the same situation. And students got hurt, and people got shot. Every time someone got shot, dead, or whoever came through and questioned and, was up and down. That was a story. That was on the front page of every magazine, every newspaper, whatever. You saw people, this one lady kneeling down in front of a body and she had her hands out and she's basically saying, why? That picture was shot all over the world, but at Jackson State, we hardly heard about it. Because, the question is, do Black Lives matter, And so, yeah, it matters. So that's what we're going to be exploring, those kinds of issues, those kinds of things as we go along. And like I said, I'll be bringing on some guests and we'll be talking about, all the things that pertain to the African-American culture and there's in the African culture, I really should say, and so many other things that we need to consider. This is February, and the date is the 16th, I believe, February 16th. So let's turn to that, and let's read one of the things out of the the 365 inspired moments in African American history, and the name of the book is Glory Days. It says the country should certainly have resolved the issue of racism on campus by now, and things should have certainly be better, right? But picture the predicament of 21-year-old Jesse Fawcett on November 16th, 1905, okay? Living as I have nearly all my life in a distinctively white neighborhood, and for the past 4 years as the only colored girl in the college community, Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, right? Of over 3,000 students, I've had to let people know that we too possess some of the best, or else allow my own personality to be submerged, right? So somewhere early in the life of Fawcett, early in life, Fawcett had learned the value of ringing the bells to celebrate others when they can most enjoy the chime. It says during their lifetimes, okay? So refusing to dwell on her own isolation, she reached out to thank and encourage W.E.B. Du Bois, at a time who at a time was a noted essayist. It has been with much pleasure that I have pointed to you as an example of the heights to which it is possible for some of us to climb. It is with the same pleasure and sincerity that I tell you that now, and the desire that in the hour when your work always arduous grows irksome, some apparent lack of appreciation, you may take heart by remembering that somewhere afar off, someone is rendering unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, which is a famous quote, right? So what happens, what inspires one to realize that his or her potential greatness? Well, is it the action of a man takes to release racism stranglehold by confronting and confounding Pan-African Congress, okay, co-founding Pan-African Congress in February 1919, and the NAACP? Or might it be a letter received from a precocious student by a father still mourning the loss of a baby son? Whatever it was, it helped the boys and us. And whatever Fawcett's loneliness, she had founded a friend, a career path. Career path, and years later, a brief love affair. So in 1919, after founding the NAACP and its official journal, The Crisis, Du Bois invited Fawcett to become the magazine's literary editor, a position she's held for 7 years. A lot to unpack there, and I'm sorry for reading it as I did. It's kind of tiresome right now, still going through a lot. This is a wonderful picture, and it's from the June. You see, that's Rosa Parks down there. You see Rosa Parks, yeah. You see the young men looking on. Rosa Parks was about voter education too, by the way. That was a major push, for the NAACP to get voter registration and people who are, committed to carrying through with the vicious attacks that they would endure from the civil rights haters, And again, this book is just, it's just wonderful. I won't say too much about it, but it's just wonderful. So we do have a program on this coming Sunday. Again, it's from 1 to 4. We're honoring people such as Richard James's family, Richard and Maria James, and his daughter, Maria, and then his wife is Mary James. And then he is Richard James, and he owns a African shop, and it's in Lebanon, and also it's in this Lebanon like mall kind of thing. And he has a wonderful shop celebrating our history, African dolls, all kinds of different things. So that's why he's been lifted up, because him and his family have been in the forefront. His daughter Maria is an outstanding poet, writer, and could probably take the whole half an hour just, talking about her accomplishments and the things that she's involved in. But she will be there Hopefully they'll have a table set up as well, so you can just kind of meet them and greet them and all that. Yeah, this was another piece that I wanted to lift up, but anyhow, it just kind of slipped my mind. But anyhow, but yeah, there's a lot of great stuff going on. So we have the James family. You also had Floyd, Floyd Stokes and his family, his two daughters in particular, who are definitely trailblazers. Floyd is a tremendous author, has written a number of books. And not only that, he is someone who really lifted up the Black Lives Matter, slogan by honoring those persons who were slain or murdered, by the police officers and they were unarmed. Most of these people were unarmed and posed no threat to nobody, but somehow they still ended up dead and tortured, just like the young man we just saw last week, who was, beaten up real bad and tortured. And, here he has diabetes and all that, which is another reason why we should be talking. And wasn't no threat whatsoever, but he is up dead. Wow, And so, yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot of people to be lifted up. The Brunson family, thank God for them. Wow. Yeah, there's so much. Well, when I sit back and think about it. So we're going to get some dynamic speakers on here. One of the trailblazers, of course, is right where we are. And that is Brother Chris Thomas. And he is, given this area, Central Pennsylvania, an opportunity to have voice. We have some wonderful radio stations around, but none of them are lifting up the voice of African people living in the diaspora, this particular station is, because there's so many people who have bought into the concept and are, sustaining factors within Black history. Say that, sincerely, they sustain the momentum by the contributions that they make and the money that they put into the projects. So this is all good. But also we just found out that the person ran away from a situation that we thought no longer existed. And now that's being lifted up. And that's only a few years back, where people still were being held in slavery and bondage. Can you imagine that? Here it is 2023, and these stories are just being told of people who just escaped from situations where they were scooped up. That's what 12 years of slavery is all about. He wasn't that far from his home, I think, 3 miles or less? But yet and still, he spent 12 years on someone's farm being a slave, because they did not recognize the fact that slavery had ended and that these people were people and citizens, and they thought they could still keep them where they were and treat them in the way they wanted to treat them. And they were entitled to do so based on their whiteness, I guess. I don't know what. But eventually they were found, lifted up and lifted out. And that's a great thing. Yeah. So God bless. So also we want to make sure that we do a lot of supporting one another. There are a lot of programs that are going to take place, let's say at the Forum Building, and some churches and this and that. And they put these things on Facebook, they post them, and you may not see all of them, but if you contact Brother, Chris Thomas, who's the owner of this station, and let him know what you're searching for, he may be able to sniff them out and then get you into the information that you want to see. Hats off to Dr. Dorothy King. She just had a successful run of another one of her plays that lifted up Black history down in Penn State, Harrisburg, which is really located in Middletown. But boy, she did an excellent job this year. I got a chance to, see excerpts of the play that were posted on Facebook. But she has a knack for it, and she has people who follow her. So again, another one of the persons we easily could have honored. Can't honor everybody, but we are honoring some outstanding people, and you will be sent the list and the agenda for the day. Okay, but that's my promise, and I'm gonna definitely keep it. So anyhow, we're going to end the night. We have a lot going on, and I have to admit I'm a little tired tonight. We just finished a wonderful program called not finished the program. We had a session tonight called Celebrating Families, and we have 2 families that are coming out, and a total of 10 kids and 2 adults. A little bit more, I think there may be 11 kids actually involved, or 12, but 2 adults. And, and they have, sense enough to suck it up and come on over to the Writers Workshop, and not the Writers Workshop, but Celebrating Families. And boy, it's going to make a difference. I'm seeing some of the young people already got their wheels turning and everything. And, if we can get these young people to understand who we are and how we are, it's amazing what we can do. You know, yeah, it's amazing what we can accomplish because they're like little sponges and they soak up everything. And I do mean everything too. But anyhow, God bless them. God bless the leadership of those organizations. You know, at the school district, Harrisburg High, we have Michelle Felton, who's the principal, doing a bang-up job. And there's a lot of others behind her, you know, that are doing great work, maybe beside, behind, whatever. People are really, you know, moving. Hats off to Sanko for African American Theater Company. They had to cancel out this past weekend's, you know, shows because of all that they were going through. Illness hit the cast, and so they were able to do it on the 2nd and the 25th of is it 2nd and 25th? Yes, I think so. But anyhow, they have a couple of programs coming up. No, it would be not 25th. That's not right. They're able to do. Let me see. Yeah, this weekend. It's this Friday, which is tomorrow, which will be the 17th, I believe. And then that's Sunday, you know, which will be the 19th. Yep. Yeah, 17th and the 19th, because they're going to be competing against our program. That's right. So they're going to be over at Gamut Theater, and you don't want to miss it. It's the 8th Ward, and I think it's like 8th Ward 3 or something like that. But it's a continuation of the story of the 8th Ward and the powerful community that it was here in Harrisburg and Central Pennsylvania, and all that went on there. So you don't want to miss that. People who have seen it and commented on Facebook, at least I know on Facebook, has been on other platforms as well, but just raving about it, saying it's really well done. So check that out. Friday night, I think it starts at 7, and then Sunday, I think it starts around 2 or something like that. But also don't forget the State Museum. Got to get you there, because we want to make sure that, and it's a free program. I don't know if I said that in the beginning. It's a free program that's doing, you know, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great work, lifting up a lot of great people in our community, and you can bring your entire family for free. By the way, we're going to have vendors. I understand that there's a major bug going around, and some of the vendors had to, you know, drop out. They were affected. Even our own Nicole Wilkerson was affected, and it's overcoming that bug that's been going around, which was tough, you know. But anyhow, I want to thank you all for coming on and checking out this program. You know, like I said, a little tired tonight and everything, but we will have some special guests on, some videos like we did again tonight. And Brother Chris, thank you, man, for allowing us to have this program and, you know, speaking to the world. So we'll see you. Have yourself a blessed day. See you next time here on the Griot Collective.